Another beautiful day. Very humid. As long as we're in the woods, it's cool. Lots of rain the last 24 hours. And out in the sun, it's really hot. But so green, so lush. It's one thing I really love about Michigan is the woods. So I wanted to talk about addiction and how trauma is really at the root of addiction, and just share a little bit about my story and my healing journey with addiction and the next leg of it for myself. Hopefully can help some people, give some encouragement and insight and inspiration. So I basically my whole life I've been a sugar addict, addicted to sugar. And then in my adolescence and 20s and at different times there was alcohol. So I would swing back and forth between refined sugar and alcohol. And alcohol is essentially sugar. And many years ago, way before I was a believer, probably like 30 years ago when I was first doing healing work, is that I heard the saying that sugar is the ultimate materialism. And how that came about is what I heard, in spirit, was that the root word of materialism is mater, which in Latin means mother. So essentially, what we do is try to mother ourselves with stuff. And it can be really anything that's of this world. I came to learn later. So it can be behaviors, not just substances. It can be, behaviors, addictive behaviors. So, at different times I have quit drinking alcohol and then I would start again. But I could go years without drinking, especially when my kids were growing up. And I did go to AA at different times for short periods of time. And the most recent time of quitting alcohol it'll be 4 years in December. And I was very fortunate to find a very, very good home group in the AA program in my area. It's such a good meeting that like no other meeting compares to it. And it definitely helped me to stay alcohol free. But in the very beginning, when I quit alcohol this last time, I had been medicating extreme rejection, trauma, and abuse coming out of leadership for 9 years in a Christian ministry. Lots of people have stories of abuse and stuff going on in ministries, and that was what happened to me. And so I was definitely medicating through that process and after for a while. And I realized that if I was going to be able to quit alcohol and stay off of it, I was going to have to deal with the emotions that I was trying to avoid feeling. It was going to be brutal. It was going to hurt like heck. And I figured for about 6 weeks, I would have to go through this emotional process. And it was true. I quit and I was willing to do that. And it did take about 6 weeks for me to really get through it. It was very painful. But on the other side of that, my compulsion to drink alcohol was gone. And it was actually really gone right away, within a couple weeks, actually. I think because God gave me grace, because I was willing to quit and I was willing to do it His way, and I was willing to face my emotions and be accountable for that. So that was great. But since then, I have gone on and off of eating sugar and refined sugar again. And again, as I said, for me, my whole life, it's been sugar or alcohol, swinging back and forth. And that really started the day I was born. So I want to go back to the origins of addiction. So what people have found is that attachment trauma or lack of bonding with primary caregivers for whatever reason can actually create the disruption developmentally that can lead to addiction later. And then, of course, we know now that sugar is the gateway drug. So if children are fed a lot of sugar, they can develop addiction later because it reinforces neural circuits of reward stimulation in response to negative emotions. So it's quick, it's fast, it's effective. So when we're feeling negative, challenging emotions, nothing works like sugar in whatever form. So very quickly also about addictive behaviors is they tend to raise adrenaline and serotonin, dopamine, other neurohormones, and they raise our endogenous blood sugar, meaning our stored glucose in our muscles and liver, called glycogen, will also rise when we're in addictive behaviors. So even if we're not adjusting sugary things, our own internal blood sugar can go up. So at the end of the day, that also is a sugar addiction issue. So for me, it started the day I was born. I actually, way back in the day, I went to hypnotherapy probably about 29 years ago, and I wanted to find out, why am I so addicted to sugar? And what came out was the day I was born, and all I experienced was a tremendous amount of sadness, and that I wanted my mother to hold me, and my thought was, I don't even care if she doesn't feed me, I just want her to hold me. So, and it was so much grief and stuff. So I later asked her, did anything strange happen the day I was born? And she said, well, as a matter of fact, I had a slight fever, she told me. And back then, the standard procedure was to isolate the newborn immediately upon birth from the mother for 24 hours, pending, making sure that if she had a fever, that she wasn't infectious to the baby. Now they don't do that. That's asinine because, going through the trauma of birth can raise blood temperature. And if the baby's going to catch something, they're just inside the mother's body, they would have caught it. So anyway, but what they also did in those days is when they separated the baby, obviously the baby wasn't getting mother's milk, it was getting sugar water. So birth itself is quite traumatic, but having that kind of separation from the mother is extremely traumatic on the nervous system of the newborn. And then having the experience of I gotta show you guys something. Look at this cool centipede. I don't know if you can see that, but that's pretty cool. Anyway, you don't see that every day. So, so super traumatic, and getting sugar. So my neural circuits were already conditioned in the day I was born to experience trauma and then sugar. And that's how that went. So anyway, my point is, here I am, and I am 61 now, and my health is truly suffering from eating sugar. I do eat refined sugar still sometimes, and that leads to a lot of other metabolic issues. So, and gut issues, and energy disruption, all kinds of stuff. So I'm committing to quitting, and that's why, partially why I'm making this video, is for accountability, public accountability, but also because I know it's a huge issue. I'm a trauma recovery coach, and I also am a manual therapist, so I see a lot of people, and I know a lot of people are struggling with addiction of one kind or another. And so I really, really want to explore how to heal addiction and how to do it God's way, but how to do it addressing the root cause of addiction, which ultimately is trauma. And which is also ultimately, all trauma is attachment trauma, or rejection trauma, or separation trauma, or an identity crisis of believing that we're unworthy and have no value, we're not valued and loved and cared for. So that's I'm taking it on. So this time, today's the first day really of no sugar for me, and it started with a few times the habit, the desire, came up to want to eat something. I should also add, I'm also stopping gluten and dairy at the same time because I know I'm intolerant to those. And usually sugar goes either with one or the other, usually. So, so feelings came up already. And what I did is I said, okay, what part of me wants that sugar right now? And I literally spent the time and attention to go in and listen to the parts that wanted the sugar. And instead of indulging in it unconsciously, I sat with the part. I looked at her in my mind's eye. There was a couple different ages came up. A 2-year-old part, a 4-year-old part, a 7-year-old part, a current age part. And I sat with those parts of me, looked them in the eye, assured them I'm with them, let them share their feelings, and express them and grieve. And it was amazing because when I did that, the feelings passed for wanting the sugar. I know that I'm going to keep doing this, but this is really the path. There's nutrition parts too, making sure to eat enough protein, making sure to eat soluble fiber because that balance, that detoxifies the liver, balances hormones, helps the adrenals to regenerate, heals the gut. And when the gut heals, our brain heals. Depression, anxiety, addictions naturally get a lot better. So there's a nutrition piece, there's an emotional piece. Of course, there's a spiritual piece too, praying with the Lord, asking Him to help me to surrender these feelings and to walk with me in this process. Not only for myself, but to help others too, ultimately. Whenever I have tried in the past to do this for my appearance, to lose weight, to look better, there are parts of me that always sabotage that because I've had a lot of trauma in relationships with men, and those parts do not want me to be sexually attractive to men. So I can't use that angle, and at this age I don't. It's just not a motivator for me anymore anyway. So to help those parts to feel safe, I'm assuring them that we're all okay, all my inner parts, and we're going to be fine. And I'm protecting them, and we're doing this for our health, and we're doing this so to better carry out God's purpose that He has for our lives, for my life and calling. So I will probably be posting periodically around this issue. I'm trying not to take up too much time and be too boring about it. But if anybody is going along this process, I'd love to hear how you've handled it. Have you quit sugar? Have you quit other addictions? Are you trying to? Do you want to? How's that process going? Love to engage with each other and support each other in this. This is a big one for me. This literally started the day I was born. So, but I'm willing now. I have the courage, and I believe I have the wherewithal and understanding to work with the trauma behind it all. And yeah, so thank you so much, and God bless.